as Jordan rightly says, it's an exhausting but instructive and important week in terms of the wider public seeing what we're up against.
It is, and I fully endorse everything that the guys have said. It's important to be reflective. It's important to appreciate and understand what we've been going through for far too many years. Some of us, all of us, have been part of this movement and challenge and battle on our own platforms, you know, together, you know, with different people joining our message and our words. Jordan's quite poignant when he says about not watching the video. The video continues to be played on our news channels up to the point where actually, you know, George takes his last breaths. And I'm struggling with that. I'm struggling with the fact that we know the outcome, you know, murder, you know, not murder. We know the outcome, and yet our news channels, and I don't know about news channels across the world, are continuing to show the early elements of what happened.
So sorry, Troy. Sorry, just a quick one on that one. Sorry, on Monday, Channel 4 News did a report on what was happening in America. They showed in our report of the news of the day the video of George Floyd dying. I'm in a Channel 4 News WhatsApp group that's just for people who are non-white, basically. And in the group, we all unanimously decided and agreed, Troy's point, why are we still showing this video? By now, the majority of people have seen this video, and then we spoke to management, and they've said to us since then, unless it's extremely important to the narrative of the report, we will stop showing the video on our news program. So sorry, Troy, to cut you, but
no, that's fine. I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I don't, you know, I'm linking this to football because of the space that I'm in, and I'm linking it at a period of time when we question ourselves quite a lot in the game. And I always think that every time there is a racial incident in football, every time, the faces are you don't see the faces. They're protected. You know, that you're not allowed because the incident is alleged. And every time the footage is shown, you know, the faces are muted out. And I just think to myself, that's about incidents where we've been victimized because of the color of our skin through words. This is someone who his last breaths are being taken away from him by an officer of the law. And we continue to show, you know, the build up, the lead, and the face of the human being that took his life. And that's where I struggle. I absolutely endorse everything else that the guys have said, because it's important that our voices are heard. It's important that people understand how much this has pained us for how many years. And like Jordan's just said, I continually get tired, and I get to a point where I feel, Troy, don't say no more. But then I feel that I'm letting down so many people if I don't continue to talk through this process.
I do just want to stick with this whole issue about the video. I remember when we were all kids and we all saw the drama series Roots around the slave trade and the documentation of what Black people went through back then. And it was important for us to see it, to know our history. So is there an argument that it's important for us, for our younger people, to see it clearly not up to the moment of death and to relive the whole trauma, but to at least get a snapshot of what young Black men are going through at the moment at the hands of police?
Robbie? Yeah, you know what? I'm slightly different to Jordan on Troy on this, in that obviously, like you said, you don't want to see the moment of death. But I want people to see this. Watch this, right? We find it like we might watch it once and we don't want to see it again because we already know. We didn't even need to see that. But there's a lot of people that are out there marching right now. They didn't know. They're like, I didn't know somebody could do this to another guy, unarmed. I didn't know this. No, I just can't. Let me watch it again. No, yeah. They actually did that, right? Now there's some people they're getting what we've been talking about. That's what I said. When we talk about it sometimes, I can't tell you how many times I've spoken up about racism. And I've been people telling me about I'm playing the race card. I get really annoyed when people tell me because I go, yo, do you think I want to be talking about this? I want to be talking about football, right? But I have to bring, you know, when these things happen, I have to bring it up. Oh, yeah, you're bringing up a race card. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, nah. So I want everyone to see this now. right? When you see it, maybe I saw they had George Floyd's daughter yesterday.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was there saying, my daddy's going to change the world.
Mm.
And sometimes it's a bit like, you know, I don't know how spiritual you guys are, but sometimes some things happen that's not even for you, that's for the wider world. I think this is like one of those. George Floyd's not going to die, hopefully, in vain. That this has been so powerful that there's a lot of people, as I said, that are out there marching, that they think, you know, they probably would never, ever have thought to have marched on something like this or even be discussing it had they have not seen that video.
Just to add to that, is there an argument for saying that if someone says, as you say, Robbie, I didn't know that could happen, that's the moment when you say, well, what you might want to look at Sandra Bland, you might want to look at Joy Gardner, you might want to look at Cherry Gross, you might want to look at all of the other people, right up to the guy tasered in Manchester a couple of weeks ago in front of his toddler son, falling face first to the ground. You might want to look at all of those examples as well to realise that it's been going on for decades.
D, you talk about Roots back in the day. Now, if we're all honest and if we've all watched that, I know how watching one episode of that on a Sunday night, how that used to make me feel. Yeah. And that's why I say, as Robbie said, I hope that George Floyd's life isn't in vain, for the want of a better term, and that we can go on and try to avoid these incidents. But watching Roots caused anger, didn't it? I think we must all agree with that. It caused anger. And I think that's what's spilling onto the streets right now. Okay. So when people are protesting, and what Robbie said is spot on, there's a lot of people saying, boy, I can't believe that actually happened. Check the video. Because we've been talking as a community sometimes in isolation of the indigenous community. So they just think it's our problem. But when you see that video, you realize it's a global and it's a bigger problem. And there's a lot of angry people right now. With a subsequent court case to come, Trump's elections coming up at the back end of the year, this story sadly is going to run and run, and it's just going to take another little spark potentially, and then it could all kick off, because we've got to be aware that there's a lot of anger on the streets right now.
Jordan, sorry to cut in again. Darren, on your Roots analogy, I just brought back memories, right? And I same thing. It used to make me angry at first, but then it made me think, because I remember when I was growing up, my dad always used to tell us about slavery. Mm-hmm. He always used to say to us, he goes, "You're African." Right? So we used to go, "No, we're not. We're from Jamaica." He's from Jamaica. He said, "You're una African," right? Mm. So he said, "What?" Then now, when I watch Roots, and I remember I used to watch Roots week in, week out, thinking, right, when's the hero moment going to come, when everybody gets saved and the slaves are freed, and there weren't that moment, right? Mm. And that's when I just start to look at my dad and say, they've been telling us this for a long time, you know. This is what he always used to talk about. Oh, we learned a bit about it at school, but they never told us this. Now you see the horrors of this. I needed to see that. Mm-hmm. And that series really changed me. Even though my dad used to tell me about all the time, slavery, and stuff like that, that really changed me. So sometimes we have to see the horrors, unfortunately.
Yeah.
To wake us up.
Listen, I get it, and I think everything here is about a personal view. None of them are wrong. None of them are to be judged, because I think actually we're all talking from the same space. You know, me personally, having lost a son at an early age, when his life was just growing into the beautifulness that it was going to be, I always find it difficult to see life taken away. And that's just me as a person, you know. I find it difficult to watch the embers of someone's life vanish. But I understand and fully appreciate that the awareness, the understanding, the appreciation of what Black people have gone through for hundreds and hundreds of years has to be shown to people who have often, you know, like Robbie said, just thrown out the race card angle, or shown us that actually we're fabricating something because we have an agenda, you know. There's still many, whilst we're praising those who have actually been proactive, there's still the many that don't believe that death has any significance whatsoever, who actually feel that the violence and the rioting is more important than the taking of someone's life by officers of the law. And it's those people who, I'm telling you now, I don't think we're ever going to get into this space. So we do need to, try and help people understand, those that have an open mind, those that can be opinionated, but also as well, it's not only that, it's the people that, the leaders of the world, the people who govern situations, those throughout the various businesses that were tweeting the other day, bullshit, if you want me to be totally honest, because when you look back into their organization, they've never escalated a person of color into a position of prominence. They've never understood how diversity feels. They like the culture, love the culture. Let's bring a bit of blackness into here because it looks good on our brand. But to actually promote that blackness into positions of authority so that we can help influence the organization is just something they won't extend to. So I know I've crossed the board a little bit there, but that's my emotion around the showing of the film. Actually, I do get it. I do understand it, but it has a different meaning for me. And it will have different meanings for all of us somewhere along the line.
So sorry, Darren.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Darren. I was going to say, despite probably having more grey hairs than all of you guys on the panel here put together, you guys are all 20 years older than me. You're an old foot man. So when Roots come out, when Roots came out, I was young, so I missed when Roots first come. But I suppose my moment of, I think what you listening to you gentlemen talk about that moment when Roots first came out was the documentary that came out last year, When They See Us, around the case with the five or six young boys. That there you go. And watching that gave me a sense of a similar thing of a mad injustice, but also an education as to how racist the world can be. Now, what I also learned from that documentary and why I went to the marches yesterday and Sunday was because we have to be very clear about what it is we want. What do we want? As a community, the world is listening to us now. For once, I think we're being listened to, but we have to be very, very clear about what we want. And for me, some may disagree, my biggest issue isn't even so much the fact that George Floyd was murdered. My biggest issue is the fact that a black man can be murdered with impunity. It's the fact that he will be murdered, he can be murdered, and those cops can get away with it. And again, it goes back to the Amy Cooper video. It's not the doing wrong that for me is the biggest crime here. It's the doing wrong with no accountability. Because if they start making white cops killing black men accountable, less white cops will kill black men. It's the fact that these men can do it and get away with it. That's what I'm marching for. It's justice, not so much not killing people. People will always kill people. People will always kill people. There will always be bad people out there. But if you're going to kill someone, I need to know that you're going to be held accountable. And that's why I'm marching. I want justice. Justice for me, I was asking the question to people, what does justice look like for you? And for me, it's accountability. When you do wrong, you'll be held accountable for what you've done. And I think for too long, black lives have been lost without accountability.
Well, to be fair, Jordan, just to add to that, the other three officers have been charged, and the officer, Derek Chauvin, who had his knee on the neck of George Floyd, he's being charged with second.
They've been charged before. We've seen this before. We've seen police officers kill black men and charged before and get off. And they'll get off of it. So until they're in prison...
You're absolutely right. Jordan, look, the officers who beat Rodney King were acquitted, which sparked, of course, the LA riots. So you're absolutely right to say that too often they get charged and they find a way to get out of those situations. We're hoping now that this is a moment for change.